Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's movie vlog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well, and today we're going to be talking about the Captain Marvel box office. So I know I did a box office breakdown about a couple of weeks ago where I said what my final predictions were going to be for how much it was going to make opening weekend, how much it was going to make overseas in China, and also by the end of its run overall. And at that time I said $90 million opening weekend, and then we'll see it make probably upwards of around $550 million total when everything is said and done. The one number that if I had to change at this point in time, especially now that we're getting some numbers and some indication of how much it's gonna make at least tonight, since it does indeed open tonight worldwide, I would say the opening number is probably going to be a lot higher than I had first originally thought. So what do I think it's going to make? I think it's going to make over $100 million for this weekend, and it's going to be because of one reason only, and that is the Thursday night showing. So even though I honestly do think that a lot of people are going to decide to either stay home or instead decide to go see something else instead, I think that that is likely going to be the case. One person cannot deny the fact that it has indeed made a pretty decent amount as far as pre-sales are concerned, that it has indeed sold out in certain theaters, in certain states. I know that in my city, at my theater, it's done very well for those 7 p.m. shows, and guess what? It's being shown in more 3D IMAX theaters than any other movie, almost I think in history at this point, at least from the MCU's perspective. So Disney has pretty much covered its bases by saying, all right, we're going to release the film. It's going to be released in the max number of theaters that we can possibly get it at. We're going to release it in 3D at any theater that has the 3D capabilities, because this is the way that booking usually works. Remember how I talked about how saying, okay guys, don't freak out because your theater's only saying that it's going to show Captain Marvel this weekend. It's most likely going to be, especially if you have more than 2 screens at a theater, it's going to be more than just Captain Marvel. I pointed out saying that bookers are the ones that usually are the ones that the theaters are waiting on. Once the bookers give them the schedule, then the theaters have to essentially make up the schedule based off of what has been booked. And one of those things, one of the stipulations that though oftentimes goes underlooked, is the fact that a movie theater cannot get a movie unless they agree to the terms of the movie studio. So a great example of this, let's say that a movie theater has the IMAX screen. And let's say that a movie theater, for some reason, just says, you know what, I'm going to show something else in IMAX. I'd rather show another movie in IMAX. This movie's doing really well. I'd rather do something else. Disney at that point can say, all right, well, if you don't show it in IMAX, you can't have our movie. That's pretty much how it is. And you see that most of the time theaters aren't going to fight against it, because normally if it's a Disney movie or it's another big budget film or another big studio in the discussion, they're going to probably be like, okay, no, we're going to do this because this is likely going to be the biggest moneymaker of the weekend anyway. And so more money for you means in the long run more money for us. And so therefore we'll go ahead and do that. But that also means 3D showings too. So for example, if a theater has 3D capabilities, what Disney did in the situation was they said, okay, you need to show the movie in 3D at least 2, 3, 4 times, whatever the theater schedule is, how many theaters 3D theaters that a movie theater actually has. That's going to determine the actual number of screenings that it's going to get in the 3D format. But what that means is that they are essentially making it so that at certain time periods, because guess what? Those also usually will get much better time slots than the other movies that have been out for a long time. What that means is that in certain situations, you're going to have a movie being shown in 3D at a prime time, and a lot of people going to the theater are just going to show up and say, oh, I want to see Captain Marvel, and then sometimes they don't even ask questions. They just hear the total and say, oh, I guess ticket prices have gone up. Oh, it's in 3D. Oh, that's kind of cool. And they normally just go by their day. Or sometimes they'll say, oh, I don't want to see it in 3D, and then you'll say, oh, well, the next 2D showtime isn't until an hour and a half from now, and they'll say, oh, wait a minute, well, I don't want to wait that long, so I guess I'll see it in 3D. That does happen. So that is a way of them trying to get basically more money for the people that are actually going to see their movie, have some interest in seeing their movies, and you see a lot of studios will do that. But what's interesting to me is the fact that that's not really being covered by a lot of these box office prognosticators, that yes, this movie is going to make money. Yes, it's going to make a lot of money on Thursday night, because guess what? Anyone that was going to plan to see this movie is going to go see it. I mean, and if they're going to go see it, they're going to go see it tonight, because guess what? They want to make sure that everyone thinks, oh my goodness, this movie is going to make bank. This movie is going to be a huge success, and they'll base it just on the Thursday night showings alone. The problem with that is the fact that that is just not how things work. As I've said constantly, people showing up on the day make up the vast majority of people going to see a movie, which is why normally pre-sales are a pretty good indicator, because if a movie is selling very well and it's selling consistently well over a time period, what it shows is that, okay, there's a general interest, there's people that are going to go out to support this film, there's going to people are pre-buying tickets, and that means that people are going to show up on the day too, right? That's for it's a logical conclusion to make. The problem with the pre-sales, though, is that it's not always accurate. Remember that they were talking about the pre-sales for Solo: A Star Wars Story. Remember that even the week of the movie, even the week of the release, as early as, or rather as late as the Thursday night it was opening, when all of a sudden the numbers weren't matching up what they thought it was going to, did they finally say, oh, wait a minute, maybe it won't be as successful. But before that, literally up until Thursday before Solo came out, they said, oh, this movie's going to make $140 to $160 million. They thought it was going to be this huge, huge box office success. And remember that was going to be over a holiday weekend. So they thought, oh man, this movie's going to make so much money. And then it ended up not. It ended up falling well short of expectations. And then the week 1 to week 2 drop was gigantic, and it just never caught fire overseas. I don't see exactly that kind of fallout or that kind of disaster happening with this film, but I do honestly think that we're going to see something. We're going to see some impact. And the reason why I say that is because I honestly believe that there are a lot of people, not just a few, but a lot of people that are going to be otherwise who would have gone to see this movie, who are going to be staying home and not watching it. And I think that that number is going to affect the box office at least to some degree. How much? I honestly don't know. And that's why there's some people say, oh man, you keep saying it's going to be a flop. Keep in mind, when I say flop in reference at least to this movie, what I mean is that it's not living up to the ginormous expectations. And I guarantee you, if this movie does not reach the numbers that they're saying it's going to reach, I mean, Box Office Pro, which is just, at this point has proven itself to just be garbage tier, overall, has basically already gone out of the way saying, oh yeah, the trolls are trying to drive this down, but the truth is that it's going to be, upwards of $160-180 million. They're still throwing out those kind of numbers. They are still saying that this movie is going to make possibly $350 million opening weekend alone, both the domestic, foreign totals, everything together, which just to me just seems way too high, because yes, that might indicate or might be based off of pre-sales, when pre-sales very well could be good. And I'm not denying that Thursday is not going to be a very good night, because most of those tickets are probably going to be pre-sales. And so therefore that's already baked into the cake. What I don't think is going to happen is I don't think you're going to have the gigantic audience show up that you would for any other MCU film or any other typical MCU film, because I mean, the main star has pissed off a lot of people. A lot of the coverage on YouTube, online, on social media has also been very split, I would say. To be fair, I think that there's definitely a contingent of people who do not want to see this film, who want to boycott this film, who want to basically say, screw you, Brie Larson, and are therefore going to either pay to see another movie or they'll just skip this movie altogether. But at the end of the day, I think that that number is going to have a major impact on the box office. The big question mark is, of course, how much. And so we are starting to get some numbers in. Now, keep in mind, this is still very, very early. So as of the time I'm making this video, it's around 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to get a lot more accurate numbers as the day goes on, because China, of course, it has its release there in Thursday. And so at this point in time, again, I don't really have my times memorized, but basically probably within a couple hours, we're going to get the actual Thursday projections, or the Thursday estimates based off the actual box office revenue, not just based off of predictions and not just based off of the pre-sales, but actual hard numbers. But we are getting some data coming in so far. And so it says Disney's Marvel, this is from Deadline. It says Disney's Captain Marvel has begun winging its way around the international box office. While Disney is not providing a full number for Wednesday's day one rollout, we have some local results to report. And so for those that don't know, it does have limited show times in various other countries in the foreign market on Wednesdays, and that's the reason why you're seeing a lot of people spoil the various things in Captain Marvel, talk about the the end credit scenes, etc. It's not just people who are part of the media, but even overseas they actually get a early release. The Brie Larson star, the Starer, is seeing strong early play in markets like Korea, France, and China, although the Middle Kingdom doesn't open officially until Friday. Midnights tonight are understood to have come in at RMB 16.5 million, which results into $2.51 million, which is, for a midnight, not terrible, pretty good. The fourth best start for a superhero film behind the Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Age of Ultron, and Captain America Civil War. And then it says notable that this is a standalone origin story, whereas the movies about it are all ensembles. But of course, that is failing to take into account the fact that this movie has been marketed more so, I think, than any other film. I have never seen these many trailers, these many spots, this much promotion for it, and so I expect it to do pretty well opening day in China. I expect it to possibly even do well opening weekend. I honestly believe, though, just based off of everything that I've been told, based on things that I've seen just following other movies, that the Chinese markets are a lot more susceptible, or a lot more sensitive, rather, to any type of identity politics being thrown into their films, especially if it's movies from the West. They don't like that. They don't like being preached to. They don't like this type of mindset going on. And so I think that a lot of people are therefore going to probably just say, okay, I have no interest in seeing this. I have a lot of people who, say that they're from China or have relatives in China who are saying the same thing. Again, that's obviously not a whole lot to bank on. Again, I admit that that's not the strongest case to have from my side of it, but just based on history too, just based off movies and how certain movies have done overseas, I really do think that there's something to it. So it's going to be interesting to see what the actual numbers are for the Thursday night midnights over in China, but also what the first weekend results are going to be. Because if this movie, if it makes, close to $60+ million opening weekend in China, that to me means that it's going to probably make a pretty decent amount of change, because if you start out with $60 million, you're probably going to end around $150 to $200 million, because guess what? Alita Battle Angel did around $64 million opening weekend, and it's probably going to end around the same amount of time. But it still remains to be seen, nonetheless, with how the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday shows, because as I said, pre-sales tell you part of the story. People showing up on the day tells a very different story. Very similar to elections. Very different type of people show up on the day to vote versus people that buy pre-sales or people that do early voting. And that's the reason why I honestly really think that you're going to see a very different type of number, not just from the foreign markets, but from the domestic markets as well, because of that very fact. So pre-tonight's local midnights, the Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck-helmed Captain Marvel had logged the biggest China pre-sales for any superhero film other than Infinity War. It has a 7.2 on Douban, which is not stellar, but lands above Black Panther's 6.5 and Wonder Woman's 7.1. But also keep this in mind, those movies did not do nearly as well in China as it did in other parts of the world. And so what that tells me is that it's likely going to be on par with those two movies as far as the box office is concerned. And also, I mean, if the Douban goes down by any means, or if the audiences are just saying, okay, well, we're hearing something very different from, our friends over in America, we could see different results as well. Basically, what this is doing and what this is showing to me is if you go just based off of this, the Douban, which apparently is normally a pretty good indicator of how well a movie is being received, at least in that market, then it tells you, okay, so it's probably going to make a certain amount. But just keep this in mind when you talk about Wonder Woman. So this apparently is doing 0.1 better than Wonder Woman. Okay, so let's then use Wonder Woman as our example. Remember when I did my box office breakdown, I said this is a movie that you can definitely relate it to. I don't think that Captain Marvel is going to come close to the worldwide totals of $821 million just because this one didn't have any controversy around it. It's so funny that they try and say, that all the shills in the media try and say, oh man, these are just a bunch of sexist people out there who just can't handle a strong female character, and yet none of us said anything bad about Wonder Woman. I loved Wonder Woman. I thought it was great. I never had a problem with it in the first place. Gal Gadot has always shown herself to be a very charming person. Guess what? I saw it, loved it. It was the best DCU film at the time. I still think it's the best DCU film. I think it's better than Aquaman. That's just my own opinion on that. I guess that's just because I'm a sexist against men, I guess. But it's also very similar in production budget too, because Captain Marvel was made for around $155 million or so. So you're seeing at similar production budgets, similar stories, similar story arcs. However, this one did not push identity politics because guess what? Gal Gadot didn't really jump on that train. Also, Patty Jenkins didn't jump on that train. Yes, she has, tweeted out earlier today saying, oh yeah, cannot wait to bring the Wonder Woman crowd to go see and support this movie. But of course, that's what's just going to happen. She's not going to go out and say, oh yeah, don't support this film, or I'm not going to do this. But she's also at the same time not going to go out and just, promote herself saying, oh man, whamma, 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 which is what Marvel has done. And also, of course, what Brie Larson has done on top of that. But using this as an example, this movie made $90 million in total in China. Now, they think that this movie is going to make a crap ton of money in China. $90 million is not a crap ton. It's a good amount. Again, don't get me wrong. That's nothing to snuff at. Again, we see that ends up making around 41.6 of the entire foreign market, which is very high. It's a lot of money coming out of that. Again, it's a lot of money coming out of China. However, this one, again, Wonder Woman, 7.1 on their rating scale, we see very differently here with Captain Marvel with a 7.2. So let's say that incrementally, you just give it just that little bit of a boost. You're looking at probably closer to 95, maybe to $100 million tops that this movie will make, which means it's probably not going to get close to 60 million unless there's a severe drop-off from week 1 to week 2. And what that tells me, again, opening weekend for this movie made about $37 million. And so we can expect that, in China, it'll probably get close to $40 to $45 million. But also, we don't really know what that drop-off is going to be between week 1 and week 2. But again, using this as an example, saying, okay, so $100 million seems about right for what it's going to make in China. And if that's at least a third, it means it's going to make roughly around $300 million, when you talk about the foreign market. Domestic market, probably going to be, I would say probably not higher than this one because, again, this movie didn't have any controversy around it. So I would say probably closer to 300 million. So you're looking at around a $600 million take, which I think, again, is fine. The movie only needs to make $400 million. Captain Marvel only needs to make $400 million to break even. So I think it's definitely going to break even. I think it's definitely going to make a profit on top of that. But if it doesn't reach these high levels, again, it says $350 million opening weekend alone. That would be the vast majority of what it made in total, of what at least Wonder Woman made in total for the foreign market. So I just want to kind of give you a perspective about why I just don't think that these numbers are really matching up to what we are being told. And again, we're going to find out a little bit more tonight when we actually get these numbers coming in, but just things don't seem right overall. So comparing it to Wonder Woman, I think ratings scale is going to tell us a little bit closer to what the China market is going to say, and also it's going to tell me very clearly if we can actually look to this score and say, okay, this is how we can indicate and this is how we can predict how a movie is going to do in China. But still, that remains to overall be seen as well. As you know, China will be a swing of the full opening weekend coming into the frame. Some had it at a $60 million launch, while other sources were more bullish in their $90 million plus range opening. No chance in hell. No chance in hell. If that kind of number comes out of China, I'm going to be very, very speculative about what's going on there, and that's when I'm going to probably dive into conspiracy theories, because that is just going to be crazy and unheard of if that happens. We'll know more tomorrow when the first estimates actually arrive for the official opening day. Elsewhere, Carol Danvers is seeing early combined Wednesday-Thursday totals, about 5.9 million in Korea. In France, we're hearing there are over 212,000 tickets sold on Wednesday. That would constitute about 1.7 million for the fourth best start of the year, behind a local sequel, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, and Disney's own Wreck-It Ralph. So fourth best start of the year. Okay, so best start of the year, not of all time. So it's not selling crazy amounts in France, which is a country that I would assume would probably support this movie crazily. Korea, 5.9 million. That's actually pretty good overall, because when you look to, for example, Alita, it has around 16 million total there. So seems like it's going to do at least okay in Korea. But again, we'll wait and see when people actually start showing up for the weekend to see those final numbers come in. But as you see, these are the actual numbers coming in, and they don't really tell us a whole lot, but they do seem to indicate that yes, it's going to do well opening. But how much is it going to make overall? And this is where we need to just dive into all of the shill media and what they've been saying. Captain Marvel now is the most advanced ticket sales ever. Advanced ticket sales. Best pre-saler ever since Infinity War. What they're trying to do, what the media is trying to do, is put Captain Marvel on pace and on the same level as Infinity War. Now, some people are going out of their way. In fact, even our boy Scott Mendelson earlier said, hey, it doesn't need to do as well as that film to be successful. We need to be very careful with what we compare this to. Basically trying to already provide a defense for if the film does not do well, if it does not succeed. The problem, though, is that you're talking about pure pre-sales. And therefore, you see that people like Scott Mendelson and other shill media presence are basically trying to say this movie is going to make so much money, and all we have are pre-sales. All we have are Fandango. All we have are what it's making there. But pre-sales are not a guarantee, as I've made very clear with Solo. And some people say, oh, Solo is a rare exception because of everything going on, and oh, it was because it came out in May and there was Star Wars fatigue. If there's any franchise or any universe that has any kind of, or should have any kind of fatigue, you think it would be a franchise that has had over 20 films in the last 10 years, which would be Marvel. This would be the film to actually feel that fatigue with, because this is a new character after we've already had characters established a long time ago at this point. This is a brand new character being shoehorned in right before Endgame, and people are thinking to themselves, okay, what's going on? And then you add on top of that the fact that there's a backlash because of Brie Larson and everything that she said, and also the source material and all this other stuff going on, and you're starting to realize, I just don't really see that they're there. But this, I think, is the most telling. This headline right here from Scott Mendelson tells it all. Captain Marvel can debunk the idea that trolls and toxic fans hurt the box office. This is what it's all about, guys. And this is the reason why, if this film does close to $90 million opening in China, I will be on the conspiracy theory territory, because I honestly think that they are ginning up all of this outrage. They are putting things out there, putting headlines out there, making these excuses, because I honestly at this point think they want to prove that the Star Wars fans didn't sink Solo: A Star Wars Story. They want to have a metric to show, oh, look, fans do not have any impact on the box office whatsoever. There are enough general audiences that don't follow news media that are going to be affected by this, and that's the story that they want to run with. What Scott Mendelson says is actually revealing what their motive is. They want this film to do well, not because they want to make money. They want this film to do well so that way they can say, oh, look, you see, it was trolls after all. It was a small vocal minority that doesn't account for much of anything. That's the story that they want to run with. And if the movie makes even just a little bit of profit, they're going to run with that story. They're going to say, oh, wait, don't worry about those gigantic numbers that we were saying. Oh, the pre-sales, $350 million opening weekend, etc. Don't worry about what we said then. Worry about the end result. Look, $600 to $650 million. That's a great number. Look how that compares to other films, etc. They'll try and spin it in whatever way they possibly can. If this film makes money, they will spin it and say, look, the trolls try to sink it. No. What the trolls did, or what you call trolls, I just call regular people who are just tired of identity politics in films. What we try to do is say, hey, we can affect the box office numbers. If you don't think that we have an impact, guess what? Me staying home, me buying a ticket to something else does have an impact. It might not be the largest. It definitely is not going to be enough to sink this movie completely. I don't think that's going to happen. I've never said that Captain Marvel is going to be a total flop and lose money. I don't see that happening. However, I think they are putting way too much effort, way too much mindset into these damn pre-sales that they're going to lose sight of the true story, which is who are going to show up on the day to see the movie, to support the movie, but also who's going to come back? Who's going to support the franchise through merchandise sales? Who's actually going to do that? And also, could all of this eventually, especially if you have the media that's going to go after, because as I said, the media is already making excuses for this film. If this film does even slightly worse or better than expectations, they are going to spin it one way or the other to attack fans, to attack the so-called trolls, to attack the people that are there, apparently sexist and racist and all these other things. They're going to do that because that is the narrative. That is what they want to do. That is what is on their mindset. And what we see here is an opportunity for us to say, no. You don't control the narrative. We do. And we speak loudly with our wallets. So guys, anyway, that's going to be it for me today. Cannot wait to finally get box office numbers. Seriously, I cannot wait for tomorrow when those numbers for the Thursday nights finally come in. As I said, I predict they're going to be very high. I think that, is a record going to be broken? Potentially. I really do think so because, as I said, most people who want to see this movie, who want to support this film, who are on the Captain Marvel train, bought their tickets in advance and want to support it to show, look, it's going to do so well. But that Friday to Sunday number, domestically, China, I really do think it's going to be interesting. I don't think it's going to follow the narrative. I think that there's going to be a lot of questions. But also at the end of the day, if for any reason this movie makes the $350 million that is now being projected to make, if this movie makes almost $100 million opening weekend in China alone, that's when I'm going to start to wonder, did tickets get bought? Did theaters get bought? Did something happen to where they tried to gin up the box office to, one, try and prove a point, and two, to try and protect their new star, or what they hope to be their new star, even when the critics themselves don't really like her all that much. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me. If you like this video, smash that like button, give me a subscribe. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Also, guys, let me know in the comments below what you think the movie is going to make tonight. Are you going to see it tonight? Do you plan on seeing it tonight? I know that I'm planning on seeing it. I already bought my ticket to Alita Battle Angel. I'll let that speak for that. I'll let that speak for itself. And I will, of course, let you guys know my own thoughts about it. But also, I plan on doing a live stream, as I said earlier, if I indeed get home early enough, and if my wife allows me. So anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful night, and as always, God bless.